2 acres of pine thinning, along with some salvage cutting from Hurricane Michael that came through a couple of years ago, and some salvage cutting from the ice storm. We also had reforested some tracts out there, some tracts from even longer ago, back in 2018, that totaled about 87.6 acres. From all that forest management, Prince Edward County receives a portion of that, and this year, for the fiscal year of 2020 to 2021, that amount equaled $52,951.47. I think I'll just drop that off with Miss Sarah in the back if that's okay, but I'll stand up here with any questions or concerns if you have them.
Are there any questions from the board?
I have a little question. I don't know why I've noticed here in travels, there's a lot of nice red oak trees dying. Do you think that's part of the ice storm and may have split them, cut them, or is it a bug that we don't know about? Or?
There is one gypsy moth is a defoliator of oaks, and so a lot of times they hit. And also, this is going to sound made up, but it's absolutely true, a disease called sudden oak death, and that seems to be heavier on wet years. And as you know, we've had significant rainfall about every weekend around here, so I think that increased soil leads to increased fungus and leads to a better avenue for those diseases to grow and expand.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Any other questions?
No question. Thank you for the donation of the money. Come back next year.
Right there. Don't unless you got a check. Is that right, Jared? Is that what you say?
All right, thank you much.
sir. Nice meeting you.
Thank you, sir.
I just can't wait to see how much Scott's got.
That's exactly right. Scott, you gotta follow up here now.
Hey, Scott.
Come on
Come
up.
on, man. You gotta beat that.
Good evening, Chairman and Board, County Administrator. Thank you for having me tonight. I'm going to start off by talking a little bit about our safety project that we took on Abilene Road. We worked earlier in the year to appropriate some funding through the County Safety and Operational Funds. We were able to widen a 1.5 mile section of that roadway. We completed it last week, I think was our last day out there working. So in that section, we cut out the shoulders that were there, widened them 2 feet, and then we surface treated the top and we added shoulder stone. A lot of the brush was cut back. That section of road's looking really good. We still have our loose gravel signs up. We'll probably leave those up for another couple weeks till that surface treatment has some time to wear. The loose rock will come off the top. You know, it'll be a sealed up roadway. Shouldn't have any issues. And as long as we don't change our plan, we're going to, as new money gets deposited in that fund, we're going to keep chipping away, widening it, coming towards 15 until we get it completed. So I think overall it's going to be a great improvement, especially once we get done. So we've been boom axing throughout the county, getting some of our brush cut back. As the guy from the Forest Service was mentioning, it has been a wet year, very humid and sunny days. I think the tree growth has been exceptional this year, and then some of the trees were compromised in the ice storm and are leaning over more than normal. So it's just a lot of brush to get cut back, but we're making good progress at getting caught up. Primary mowing has started, and we're actually completed with our secondary mowing. We're starting our rural rustic project on Hidden Lake Road. So you'll see us out there doing some drainage work and then following behind that, putting stone down, surface treating that road. We've been picking up litter bags thanks to the work with the corrections officers. They're doing a great job keeping the county clean. We've been trying to keep the brush that is growing out from being in front of our signs, so we're continuously daylighting signs. Next week, we're going to go out and daylight the signs that are on 460. We've cut back the limbs that have grown in front of those once already this year, but it's time to do it again. And also, we're going to be resurfacing Route 133 down there near Hampton-Sydney College. Starting that next week, I believe, is when the actual paving work will begin. And then we're doing some environmental permitting work on Route 651. We're hoping to install some gabion baskets along the creek side there and stabilize that road to where when it rains real hard, we won't have so much damage on that road all the time. So, well, that's just a quick update of what we've been up to. I was going to open it up to you guys for comments and questions.
I got a question. I just got a glimpse at the paper today, as I was going out the door. But, I understand it seemed like that VDOT was, going to put some money up for, an engineering study for the Riverwalk.
I think I might have caught a little bit of that same article, but I also didn't have time to fact check it or really dive into it and
What the
find out.
prospects were, do you think?
Yeah, I'm gonna make
Are we
sure
getting close?
I have no idea, to be honest, but I could dig into it and let you know.
Right.
Yes. Scott and I talked about complaints on Abilene Road because it said, watch for loose gravel. All of that added is nothing but gravel on both sides. And Scott told me eventually that's gonna get better, that's gonna smooth out or whatever. But I've had many complaints in the last 2 weeks. Scott, I'm just curious and I ask the question again. Why didn't that widening process start from the Hampton-Sydney area going toward Charlotte Courthouse instead of coming from Charlotte Courthouse into Prince Edward? I mean, their area nice and smooth, and they are just continuing that smooth effort. Why did it start in that direction?
Well, that was actually our original plan, but then once we started digging in deeper and doing the logistics of it, we took some measurements, and the Charlotte County side of the roadway was actually about a foot narrower. And we felt like there's a little bit less traffic on that end, and that crew really hadn't taken on a widening project of that nature in a long time. So we felt like we would kind of practice and get good at it on the end where it was narrower, and I felt like, maybe needed the improvement the most. But it also had a little bit less traffic to deal with as we got started. So now that we're practiced up, I think we'll be better at it as we come towards the busier end of the road.
So you actually feel it's less traffic that way?
Yes, ma'am, there is. There's about 2,000 cars a day on the Hampton-Sydney end on the 15 side, and over towards Charlotte County, there's about 700 cars a day. So it's pretty significant drop in traffic as you head towards Charlotte.
Okay.
Now, the widening of the road, Dr. Pryor was saying it was gravel. Man, is there gonna be tar and gravel later on?
But it's actually a lot more than that. We cut out the shoulders that were there, and we put in, I might have forgot to mention this when I was talking earlier, we put in asphalt first, 2-foot widening. And then where you have that joint that you create, where you widen on, over top, we surface treated 3 feet to seal everything up so the water can't get down in that joint and in the wintertime freeze and thaw and cause problems. So it's the surface treatment on top is really to seal everything up.
In that top stone, those floaters will float off that surface.
Yeah, they wear off, and most people from the general public can't tell the difference between a surface treated road and a paved road. After that loose gravel gets worn off and it has some time, you really can't tell the difference.
Oh, okay.
And you said it'd take about 2 or 3 months.
Yeah, I think after about that amount of time, it'll start to, the newness will be off of it, it'll look good and ride better,
Okay.
Did you get a chance to, was Corner Road down off Twin Bridges? See if it would meet criteria for.
Did I send you the
Rustic?
traffic data on that last month? You asked me for the,
That was Hatters Creek,
Oh.
Snail Creek and Hatters Creek, but we was talking about Corner Road.
that has fallen right off my radar, but
Yeah, I think you said you can see if it meet the criteria for rural rustic.
okay.
I think it's 723,
That sounds right.
right off Twin Bridges.
I'm writing it down now. I'll send it to you tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
No problem, sir.
Go ahead, Bobby.
No, I don't. I can see if it's on the schedule for either this year or next year. Copper Hill Road? Due this year. Yeah, I'll check. I'm not sure. The schedule work got cut this year from what it normally is, so, but I'll double check and I'll let you know if Copper Hill Road is on it for this year.
Okay, appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem, Mr. Jones.
Beverly.
Scott, I just want to thank you for the trimming of the overgrowth around the bridge on Commerce Road.
No problem, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Patty, anybody else have anything?
No.
There, Rattler's Branch, appreciate you taking care of that. I see where they boom axe that on both sides of, say you are getting ready to start on Hidden Lake, because I've gotten some comments about that.
Yes, sir, that's, we should be out there, I think next week we'll be starting drainage work, so we'll be getting it done.
Any other questions from the board?
All righty, thank you guys.
Scott.
Thank you, Scott.
Melody, Commonwealth CRC.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Doug asked me to come and kind of give you an update on the Commonwealth Regional Council. Just got a few comments on where we are. Just wanted to let you know first that physically we're doing very well. Our FY 21-22 budget includes 14 local and regional projects totaling $140,834. We have 3 state contracts totaling $206,771, and local member investments, which of course Prince Edward County participates in, $133,000, and we are projecting net income of $99,126. So we're doing well physically. We appreciate your support. I know people get tired of hearing the comment, COVID, this whole last year, things have been tough. Well, I want to say that for the Commonwealth Regional Council, it was difficult. We had 2 staff who contracted COVID, and so that, kind of put a damper on things for a while there. And then we also have had 2 staff leave in the last several months. So we're trying to hire new staff. We've hired 1 new staff who started on September 2nd. She's doing a fantastic job, but we're still trying to replace 1 other staff. And our main problem is getting applicants. And I think everybody's suffering from the same problems. But during that time, through all of that, working remotely, sickness, losing staff, we were still able to meet all of our obligations, which is just amazing considering everything that was going on. And I wanted to say a big thank you to the 2 staff that did leave, Mary Kay and Samuel Torpy. They went on to work in the private sector. You always want to appreciate someone who, wants to better themselves, but they did a fantastic job in pitching in and, helping during those efforts. And then to my deputy director, Todd Fortune, I told him, I said, we obviously have superpowers to have kept everything going because it's only been the 2 of us staff since May. So, we've truly been able to, meet all of our obligations. I definitely want to give a shout out to them. I know every month you get a copy of our CRC items of interest. I hope that's something that, is helpful to you to keep you informed on everything. And I always try to keep it only 1 page. I know how much information you already have to read every month anyway. So I'm trying to, keep it that way every month. So if I miss anything, that's the reason, is because I'm trying to condense it. So some of the highlights of the past year, we just recently added up over the whole past year. We had 29 successful grants totaling $2,084,750. So that was a pretty good year. Types of projects, and I'm not going to read all of these, but some of the types of projects were emergency response equipment, new ambulances, fire department equipment, some of it very specific to COVID-19. There were 2 rounds that were very specific where you could request funds for that, and we were able to assist in getting those. Emergency medical dispatch systems and software, and this is for the whole region now when I'm mentioning these things. Broadband expansion, historic preservation, pedestrian sidewalks, some in economic development, emergency generators, the list just kind of goes on. To mention local projects, for Prince Edward County, we've been assisting Prince Edward County in administering their access road project. We've been working with Doug on that. Also similar to that, filing reports for the Tobacco Commission on projects that go along with that. We also are assisting the county in submitting, filing reports to the Tobacco Commission on the Yak Attack project, to close that out. We also assisted in helping the county apply for some of those items I talked about, COVID-19 related items for Prince Edward County. It was a regional project for all of the fire departments. We also assisted Prince Edward as an applicant for Hampton-Sydney to apply for some state Homeland Security grant funds that they received, and then also assisted in providing administration to Farmville that got some Homeland Security grant funds. So those are some of the things specific to Prince Edward. Other things that we're doing around the region, we're currently assisting Nottaway County to update their comprehensive plan. We also just recently signed a contract with Charlotte County to begin assisting them on doing that as well. We're doing some grant administration on several different projects. We're also assisting with the CRC Regional Hazard Mitigation Grant update. That's something for the entire region. And that's once you do that, that's a FEMA requirement that if you ever have a national disaster, which of course you hope you never do, you need to have an approved hazard mitigation plan in order to access FEMA funds. So we got a grant for that for the entire region, and we're currently working on updating that. So we've got, like I said, a lot of grant administration projects. We also receive funding from the Department of Environmental Quality to work on the implementation of the Chesapeake Bay Water Implementation Plan for this region. And we also receive funds from VDOT to work on rural transportation planning. I did want to mention, I think earlier you asked about the Farmville Riverwalk project. We're actually assisting the town of Farmville in submitting that. That's a grant application that's due October 1st, and it's going to be a two-phase project. So we're assisting on that. So that's actually, I'm not sure what the paper said today. I didn't see the article, but that application is due October 1st. We also, Todd Fortune also submitted today a Vati grant to the Department of Housing and Community Development for broadband expansion that includes Prince Edward County, Cumberland, Lunenburg, and connects. So we're all very hopeful, that those funds will go through as well. And then lastly, one of the things that we are working on that you've probably heard about is redistricting. We will be providing free redistricting services as we've done the last, 2 or 3 censuses, to do the mapping portion. What we are currently waiting on, our software vendor needs to get to us the final 2020 population. And the reason there's a little bit of a delay, the 2020 General Assembly enacted special legislation just for Virginia to make a change in Virginia locality populations to reallocate prison populations so that instead of them being counted in the group quarters where they are counted where their home address is. So the Virginia Legislative Services has been tasked with making those changes, and then that has to be applied to the population, and then those numbers are going to be shared. So I haven't gotten that information yet. And then one other thing, I'm kind of going to be reaching out to the counties, and I've done this sort of informally. I still don't know the date of when you have to turn in your final plan. Normally, in the normal process, you know that right up front. Because of everything that's crazy been going on, I haven't found anyone yet who knows that. I don't know, Doug, if you've heard anything recently on that as well. So that's kind of a snippet of what we've been working on. Any questions?
Melody, I'll add that the other pickup with redistricting for localities is because of the requirement, and the board acted on it with the, what is it, when you have the shared precinct or the split precinct?
Split precinct.
So we almost have to wait until the state redistricting commission finishes to see how our locality is districted for the state, for the General Assembly, because if they split us, then we need to be mindful of that when we're establishing our local, otherwise we create split districts.
That makes sense, but there is a difference between your voting districts and your precincts. Those lines can be different, but like you said, you would want to be aware of that. I have been wondering if that's what will occur, is you have to wait for that state commission to be done, but I've yet to find out the answer to that, so I'm not sure.
I think from,
The state's giving the registrar's guidance that they want a solution, not an annual waiver for those split precincts.
I think the end result is you're going to have to wait for the state to do their thing and then come back and try to align to those boundaries.
I think the good news might be is you don't have, obviously nothing is going to get done in time for election. I think that's pretty obvious. So it seems like you're going to have more time.
That could cause us some pain.
That's true.
Any other questions? Thank you, Melody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Keep up the great work.
Be back tomorrow morning, right? This time, I think it's time for our public hearing. You gonna read it first, Doug?
Yes, sir, I
You
can
want
do
me to
that.
Open it first.
Go ahead and open it and I'll.
I'm gonna open the public hearing. It's considered open.
In March 2020, the Board of Supervisors appropriated funding to the Industrial Development Authority that ultimately led to the purchase of the Lockwood property for use in marketing as a data center site. One of the biggest cost centers for such a project is payment of personal property taxes due to the large investment and high tax rates for personal property. As such, most localities that are competing for such projects offer a reduced personal property tax to make their communities more competitive, specifically for computers and computer peripherals. Some communities have waited to adjust the rate once they've had a prospect, while others have lowered rates to make themselves more competitive in marketing their communities. In talking with representatives with Dominion Energy, they've suggested proceeding with adopting a lower rate to make the community more competitive in marketing the site up front. At this time, we're requesting the board consider a lower tax rate for computer equipment and peripherals used in a data center. In accordance with Section 58.1, 3506A43 of the Code of Virginia, computer equipment and peripherals used in a data center are considered a separate classification for local taxation. Accordingly, many localities have adopted, again, a lower rate to attract these types of facilities. As an example, Prince William County, Stafford, Spotsylvania all have a rate of $1.25 per hundred. Fauquier has a rate of $2.30 per hundred. We're proposing Prince Edward adopt a rate of $1 per hundred. Currently, the county taxes such equipment at the personal property rate of $4.50 per $100. Furthermore, we're requesting that the county adopt a depreciation schedule similar to the other counties mentioned above. Again, Section 58.1, 3503A17 states that computer equipment and peripherals used in a data center shall be valued by means of a percentage or percentages of original cost or by other such method as may be reasonably be expected to determine fair market value. Such proposed depreciation schedule will be at 50% of assessed value in year one, 40% year two, 30% 3, 20% 4, and 10% year 5 in each year following. Again, this equipment depreciates, as we all know. Anybody has a PC, after about 4 or 5 years, you pretty much have a boat anchor. It's not worth a whole lot. But and part of that good, it's good because they continue to turn over that equipment and replace it. They typically replace every 4 to 5 years. Currently in the county, equipment, furniture, and fixtures are assessed as a percentage of the original cost at 20%, and that's flat for each year. I've attached comparison sheet of rates in Virginia and some specific comparisons for you to take a look at. Again, currently we're at $4.50 at 20%, so the effective tax rate, or ETR, is 90 cents per hundred. Under the proposed, at $1 at 50%, it would be 50 cents for year one, 40 cents for year two, 30 for year three, 20 for year four, and 10 cents for year 5 on out. There's a proposed resolution, including the packet, that sets the tangible personal property rate for computer equipment and peripherals at the $1 with the depreciation rate, and would not go into effect until January 1 of 2022. The reality is, we'll set next year's tax rates, but what it does is, from a marketing standpoint, it goes ahead and says, this is our rate for the upcoming year, what we're using, and allows us to help market our community as having a lower, more competitive rate for these types of facilities. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Isn't that fairly normal with our competitors?
It is, when you look at, and some have really dropped down. Goochland, let's see. Not as much. Frederick County, Virginia was $1.25. Chesterfield dropped to 24 cents in the 50, 40, 20, 10 split. Some have got more aggressive. Some have more land available. Some are a little more competitive. We can always negotiate later, but at least this gets our rate down to at the effective tax rate of 50 cents or less, and lets us be in the market for it.
Any public participant?
I do not believe we have anything in that category.
That's
Yes, sir.
exactly right. Is there any participation from the public? If not, I'm gonna close public participation. All right, board members, it's up to you all for discussion and/or your pleasure.
I personally think it's a good way to market our site to attract, some businesses. I'm gonna move that the Board of Supervisors approve the attached resolution and set the personal property tax rate $1 for computer equipment and peripherals used in the data center to set a separate depreciation schedule for the computer equipment and peripherals used in the data center. Further move that the board adopt a revised tax levy resolution for calendar year 2021.
All right, Jerry's made a motion. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Patty's got the second. All right, Ms. Pride.
Yes.
Myself is yes. Patty?
Yes.
Beverly?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Bobby? Jerry?
Yes.
And Lou?
Yes.
So move. All right, Randy, Buildings and Grounds update. While Randy's coming, I guess I should have said at the very beginning that if anyone wants to report, if anyone wants to comment or participate remote, they can call 1-844-890-777, access code 390313. So if you're out there and you want to just click in or whatever, it's up to you, Randy.
All right, thank you. Just to give you a rundown of some of the things we've been up to, we're still fogging the public areas of the courthouse on Tuesdays and Thursday mornings. We placed their chiller on a service contract, had it cleaned, pressure washed, and had to replace EXV board relays and a transformer, replaced 3 1.5 horsepower motors on it, and we've got it back where circuit number 2 is running for us, and it's been working well this summer.
On borrowed time, right, Randy?
Yep. We're gonna change the filters as scheduled for October. We have met with 2 architectural firms for specs on replacement of the chiller and the pumps. So we hope that from them, we'll get an apples to apples comparison so we can get it out to bids and get it replaced here in the near future. We had to repair the generator. It was not cooling down on its cycle. It would run for 5 minutes and shut off. It's supposed to have a cool down cycle. So we looked at that, and the voltage was dropping on it. We had to replace the voltage regulator on that. We've been replacing carpet and flooring in offices and in break rooms. We've had the front entrance hallways had the front entrance hallway and part of the health department cleaned, waxed, and buffed. Currently working on signage for the inside of the courthouse and outside to facilitate getting people where they need to be. I had the fire extinguishers inspected and replaced in the county buildings. Most of them had a date on them of 2014, so it was something that was needed. We're still working with companies on the replacement of the phone systems, refining it to our needs and our best price. The internet has been upgraded to 1 gig, and we're replacing the old network switches to maximize the service use. In the shredded building, we were having problems last winter with flooding at the loading dock, so we cleaned the ditch line for better drainage. We had to pull the wall back in where it had been knocked out, and we repaired that. And we've had sewer problems in there, which we recently, I think we've taken care of that. In Pefia building, we've kept that building clean after each COVID clinic we've had, and I think our staff has done a good job with that. We have received the convenient site sheds previously for 3 sites, which is Tuggle, Verso, and Green Bay, and we'll be working on those to get them all the same and get them out hopefully before the end of the year. We cleaned the scope building on the outside, removed a lot of overgrown bushes, made the whole thing look better, inspected it, and it has some issues, which I'm sure you'll get into later. We replaced the motor on the corn cutter and the cannery. We installed valves on the pots, had the boiler re-skinned in the front, insulated pipes for safety reasons and heating value, and we have repaired and patched leaking pipes. Since we're in the running season, we don't want to tear into it too much because it could shut us down for a couple of days. We're making daily repairs to the courthouse and other buildings, mowing our grass at our county sites, bush hogging our IDA properties as needed, and we are repaired and replaced road signages and 911 markers as requested. So that's just a rundown of some of the things we've been into. Any questions?
Are there any questions from the board for Randy?
Sound like you've been busy.
He's laughing, Bobby, just let you know.
I don't think they'll guarantee that, but we'll hope we'll buy one that'll last that long. Yes, it is, yes. It's seen its life. Yeah. We're good, thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to commend Randy and his staff for the efforts of the last few months. And we are in the process of getting ready to sign a contract for the design of the new chiller design, the bidding process and the vetting process of the bids, and hopefully can get that out. I think our goal is obviously do that over the fall, winter, spring before we get into the cooling season for next summer. I think we've been very fortunate, knock on wood, that we've been able to get through this cooling season without any major issues. We had some minor stuff. And
Well, I think we've been on top of it and got to it before we had any problems.
Thank you, Randy.
Thank you.
Good job.
Good job.
Appreciate it.
All right, Jeff with a solid waste update.
Good evening, everyone. Thank y'all for having me here. Just to kind of give y'all an update of some of what we've done at the landfill since May. The month of May, we took 2,877 tons of debris, trash, with 920 vehicles bringing it in. The month of June was 3,716.72 tons, with 1,059 vehicles in. July was 4,413.26 tons and a total of 993 vehicles coming in. A lot of July was usable material that will actually help the landfill, such as dirt. We got a bunch of loads of concrete that was almost like gravel. We got loads of gravel in. It was a lot of beneficial use that will save us when we build roads and stuff at the landfill. August's total was 3,038.75 tons and a total of 964 vehicles. Since May, we've replaced the front entrance gates at the landfill. We're getting ready to install a board fence along the front and plant some shrubbery and plant flowers along the front. A lot of the decking boards have been replaced, entering the scale house where the customers get in and out of their vehicles to receive their tickets. The office trailer is up and running. We've got a little bit more painting to do, but the office trailer is up and running where the engineers can come in and sit down and we can pull a set of blueprints out and go over ideas and go over things for future building at the landfill. The compactor pads at all of the sites have been washed at least once time this summer. We're getting ready to start going around for our second washing for the summer. At this point, all of the equipment is doing fine. We've got one piece that's going to be down for some track and roller and undercarriage replacement. Carter Cat's going to take a couple of weeks to do that, but other than that, everything is running just as smooth. Daily operations going good.
Any questions from the board for him?
Very good.
Job.
Thank y'all.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Is Robbie here?
I'm covering for
You
him.
come for Robbie. All right, go to it. Solar revenue sharing, Doug. Page 101 for those of you that are.
If board remembers, last year, I think y'all adopted a new solar ordinance that deals with the siting of solar facilities. So the county is receiving a large amount of interest from various companies seeking to locate utility-scale solar energy facilities. To date, there have been pre-development meetings for 3 projects with a combined total acreage of approximately 2,500 acres. These types of projects require a large amount of staff time and resources to process and review applications, perform site inspections, and provide oversight during construction. These large-scale projects are permitted by special use permits only, and if approved, could represent a significant source of revenue to the county. Currently, the state allows for 2 different ways to tax large-scale or over 5 megawatt solar facilities. The traditional way was to tax them using machinery and tools tax assessments. In 2020, the Code of Virginia was amended to allow revenue sharing. Per the Code of Virginia, a revenue sharing ordinance first has to be advertised and adopted by the locality. Currently, the revenue share code, that's 58.1-2636, which a copy is in your packet, imposes a limit of $1,400 per megawatt per year. The most significant benefits of revenue sharing versus utilizing a machinery and tools or M&T taxation is that machinery and tools revenues fluctuate based on depreciation, and they would negatively impact our local composite index formula for state funding for schools. So you might gain additional revenue, but the school system over time will see a loss in the drop in state revenue, but an increase in the amount of local share to cover it. Pollution control equipment facilities are a separate class of property and are exempt from taxation based on certain criteria specified in 58.1-3660, which specifies the locality may elect to pass an ordinance to assess the revenue share up to $1,400 per megawatt of the nameplate capacity on projects for which an initial interconnection request form was filed with a regional transmission operator, RTO, on or after January 1 of 2019. As noted above, this only applies to projects greater than 5 megawatts. If a locality adopts the revenue share, then 100% of all projects greater than 5 megawatts are 100% exempt from taxation. This exemption does not apply to the land on which solar equipment or facilities are located. So if the solar project is greater than 25 megawatts and the land is in the solar project's name, as stated in the Internet Connection Agreement, then the land will be assessed by the State Corporation Commission at 100% of fair market value. All leased land is assessed locally. So if it was in the name of John Smith, and John Smith had a lease agreement with the solar provider, then John Smith will still be assessed that real estate value. If the county elects to remain with taxation of facilities with machinery and tools tax valuation, solar equipment would go on the books at 90% of value, and after 8 years, start depreciating downward to approximately 50% after 25 years and 30% after 3. In addition, projects greater than 5 megawatts on less than 150 megawatts for initial interconnection request form was filed with electric utility or RTO on or after January 1, 2019, or 80% exempt in years 1 through 5, and 70% exempt in years 6 through 10, and 60% for all remaining years. One other danger is that the General Assembly could adjust the percentages or exemptions in future years. In addition to a revenue share, the Code of Virginia allows for voluntary siting agreements between the county and applicants of solar energy facilities pursuant to Virginia Code Section 15.2-2316 that specifies the siting agreement may include terms and conditions, including mitigation of any impacts of such solar facility, financial compensation to the host locality to address capital needs, and a capital improvement plan addressed in the capital improvement plan adopted by the locality. Again, another reason for us to get our capital improvement plan in place. And current fiscal budget of the host locality or fiscal fund balance policy adopted by the host locality. or assistance by the applicant in the deployment of broadband in that locality. Charlotte, one of our neighboring localities that has adopted revenue sharing for solar facilities. Cumberland will be considering revenue share at its meeting tonight as well, while Buckingham will be considering this matter at their October board meeting. So everybody is pretty much looking at heading in this direction in our region. We've used the Charlotte ordinance and some others as the basis for our draft ordinance. A spreadsheet showing comparisons from other solar facilities and other jurisdictions, and revenue sharing estimates are attached for information. So in your packet, you've got a draft ordinance that, again, Robbie has developed for us to look at. You've got some of those comparisons. You've also got a table there that looks at machinery and tools tax and depreciation schedules. Again, the two big advantages of revenue share, once you adopt it, say you adopt it at $1,400 per megawatt, that is a consistent stream of revenue over the life of that facility. It's 1,400 megawatt year one, it's 1,400 megawatt year 20. In addition, it keeps that composite index from getting hit from that increase in revenue from machinery and tools tax. So I think based on those two elements, it looks like that's the proper way to go, and it looks like where most of our neighbors are heading with this. And I think the reality is by the time we have a public hearing, we may already have an application sitting in the planning commission for a solar facility. So it's coming. We're just trying to get out and get ahead of it. And really getting ahead of it is two things. One, which y'all did last year, is adopting the new zoning regulations to have stricter regulations on the siting of the facilities. And then this piece is trying to get the taxation piece in place to make sure that the county is able to take advantage of the best avenue for taxing the facilities. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I have a question. It was,
Quite a few large ones, hundreds of acres, yeah.
Bobby, you'll look into that though, won't you, through the planning commission?
Jim asked, would y'all look into that through the planning commission, Bobby?
It's been tossed around a couple times, I don't think they've ever really been, written in stone. Ryan, how about you? As far as your
Rob's not with us tonight, Supervisor Jones, but I think the good thing is because it's by special use permit, we can make sure there are conditions in place that address the concerns of the public and the board and planning commission with each application. Yeah. So-
make sure that, some of that's attached without being a special use, or not, to get a special use, it'll be attached, that's mandated, that, there's something in the front there, once we get our kind of awful small, so it's not gonna be a big amount of money. When you talk about these 2,000 to 2,000 acre solar farms, a clean up there, if something went wrong, or they just abandoned it, could be millions of dollars.
That's right. Any other, just one thing, Doug, you were talking there just a minute ago about it. If the company did not buy the land, if they leased it, then it's still the landowner's responsibility for that. How does that change?
So the landowner will pay in theory, I'm sure the lease agreement will require that the leasee, the solar company, pay the real estate for the landowner, but we still bill the landowner.
Will will that
It'll
change?
just be assessed locally versus being assessed by the State Corporation Commission, as Beverly knows.
It'd be like the cell towers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you, Bob. The long-term effect is something that we definitely need to look at and keep in mind with every single one of them. Are you in agreement? Right.
How would we protect that?
You can,
Would we have to require a bond or something?
you can require a bond.
Yeah, I agree with you, Bobby. That's something we definitely need to look into as a type of a bond issue or whatever else with each and every one of those that would be attached to the special use permit, something for the board to definitely think about and the public to think about too, if there's anybody out there listening. I agree with you.
I understand there's plans already in effect for the largest solar farm to be in Charlotte County that's on the East Coast. They're working on it. Now, here's a, oh, yeah.
That- I agree with you, Bob. Jim, go ahead, Lou.
I would say, Doug, maybe contact, and I don't know exactly what county it is, off of 40 between Brookneal and Gretna. There's a huge one going in over there. Maybe check with that county and see how they
Halifax.
kind of walk through this.
Halifax, Pennsylvania.
Is it Pennsylvania?
Pennsylvania, I think it's right on the Halifax, Pennsylvania.
That's right.
It's right there. It could be in Halifax.
Also at Chase City, was at Mac Bailey's farm, there's 1,000 acres,
Correct.
800 to 1,000 acres. That would be two localities to check with to kind of
Mecklenburg
see
County.
what kind of guidelines they put in effect.
One of the other ones, and I haven't reached out to yet, but I'm going to Spotsylvania County. I actually worked there when I was in grad school for 2 years, but they did one that was, I believe, over 9,000 acres in western Spotsylvania.
That's over near Climax, other side of Gretna and Charlotte. It's huge.
Yep. So we'll see. We'll get copies of their permits and stuff, and if they had them bonded, no, over 9,000, I think. So yeah, I think there's some good counties. Sarah would say good counties and large staffs have been through and vetted some of these projects, and we'll try to take advantage of the work they've done and help Terry as we look at these applications to make sure the county's protected.
I would hate to have to clean up 9,000 acres.
Can't imagine.
It is.
All right, I guess what we're looking for is do we want to authorize a public hearing for the October meeting?
Sure.
Is that all right, it's up to the board as to whether we want to have a public hearing in October. Move that we have one. Bobby's made the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
There's been a motion properly made and seconded. Ms. Pride?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Patty?
Yes.
Beverly?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Bobby? Jerry?
Yes.
And Lou?
Yes.
All right,
Oh,
so
let me
moved.
correct myself, Mr. Chairman. It was
Go ahead.
6,350 acres, Lou. It was 617 megawatts. That's as big as the gas power plant down in Brunswick. It's a pretty big operation, but it was a little smaller. It ended up at 6,350 approved. That's still pretty large. That's 10 square miles almost.
Yes.
That's,
It's in process.
they're building it right now.
I do know that, you know, people own the land, but there's a lot of farmers that were leasing that property that don't have that option anymore.
That's right.
It's taking a lot of good farmland out of production.
There's some really big ones down off of 17 in North Carolina. They're in Jones County, two huge ones, 3,600 acres touching right there, so definitely something we need to stay up on, that's for sure. Oh, I guess we're on number 16, the cigarette tax, page 111.
Mr. Chairman, the General Assembly in 2020 adopted legislation allowing counties for the first time to adopt a cigarette tax. The maximum rate is 40 cents per pack. The county does not apply to cigarette taxes. The county tax does not apply to cigarette sales in a town where the town imposes its own tax either now or in the future, unless the town agrees that both the town and county tax should apply. Earlier this year, the General Assembly amended the legislation to allow at least 6 localities to create a regional cigarette tax board for the purpose of jointly administering cigarette taxes in a region. The regional tax board would be responsible for cigarette stamping in the localities who are members, collecting the tax for each locality, and distributing it and enforcing the cigarette tax ordinances to make sure that retailers and wholesalers were following the local ordinances. There's been a regional cigarette tax board in Northern Virginia since 1970, which is comprised of Fairfax County, the city of Alexandria, the city of Fredericksburg, and several other small cities and towns in the region. There are currently 19 members. They have 5 employees, and it seemed to work well. Other areas of the state that are considering establish a regional cigarette tax board include the Mount Rogers Planning District Commission, the Northern Neck Middle Peninsula Planning District Commission, Thomas Jefferson Planning District Commission, the Northern Shenandoah Planning District Commission, and the Rapidan Planning District Commission. Again, you're seeing this because localities are already working together with their regional commissions. It's kind of naturally makes sense for them to collaborate. And I appreciate Melody and the board of the CRC for helping kind of guide us through the process and also bring in speakers to talk to us about the process for going through. Some advantages of a regional cigarette tax board are that each locality would not have to administer and enforce its own program. There would be uniform enforcement across the region. And if all the localities had a cigarette tax, it would be harder for a consumer to go across jurisdictional lines to buy cigarettes to avoid the tax to the extent that would occur. How much revenue would be generated for each locality? There's no study that shows the amount for each locality, and obviously will differ depending on the population and number of cigarettes sold in each locality. Colonial Heights adopted a cigarette tax in 2019 and collects about $800,000 a year in tax. A study for the Middle Peninsula estimated a county with 11,000 population with a tax of 30 cents per pack would collect about $60,000. Again, using kind of an average of 20 packs sold per capita per year. In a county of 17,000 would collect approximately 100,000. Urban areas where there are more convenience stores, the amount may be higher than for rural counties. How much would it cost to each locality to participate in a regional board? It's anticipated that it would require 2 or 3 employees, depending on the number of localities that were members. One would be an office employee in charge of collecting and distributing the tax, and 1 or 2 would be in the field visiting retailers to enforce the tax. 1 or 2 vehicles would be required, as well as office space. If there were 3 employees, they've estimated the annual operating budget could be about $200,000. Expenses would be divided based on the percentage of packs of cigarettes sold in the region. So a county selling 1% of the cigarettes would only pay 1% of the expenses. Again, it takes 6 localities to form a regional cigarette tax board. We've been talking to the localities in our region. I haven't heard anybody, Melody, asking not to continue to participate. Is that recently? Okay. So that's the only locality so far that we've heard from. Once the board's formed, the board would decide how many employees it would need. And let me step back. So 6 localities, it doesn't have to be 6 counties. It could be some of the smaller towns as well. Like, I'm assuming Farmville could join the regional tax board if it wanted to. And some of the, Phoenix, Keysville, some of the other smaller towns. Yeah. There's a question of timing. It would seem preferable localities that have not adopted a cigarette tax to do so beginning July 1, 2022 to coincide with the fiscal year next year. So really, we're just trying to talk about laying the groundwork between now and then. One caveat for counties is that, again, the county tax applies to sales in town unless the town has its own tax. Farmville has its own tax. So the likelihood is we're not going to be collecting the tax within the town borders, but you got a number of convenience stores, Dollar Generals, and things out there that do sell cigarettes. Again, the town of Farmville currently has a rate of 27 cents per pack, and the proposed ordinance would not impact that tax rate unless the town said, sure, you can say tack your 13 cents on top of the 27. During the FY 21-22 budget process, the board asked that staff look at other revenue sources. This is obviously one that could help out. Bill Hefty, attorney for Hefty, Wiley & Gore, who is assisting in the development of the board, has indicated about $114,000 in revenue per Prince Edward based on that 20 packs per person, and that was based on the 14,000 persons living outside town limits. On the low side, I'd say at least 50, given that a lot of our county folks may buy them at Walmart. They may buy them at Sheetz, which are inside town limits. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions, but really, we're just looking for direction. Do you want us to continue working with the CRC and other localities in our region to continue to look at this as an option, realizing that at some point, there'll have to be a final vote down the road, but really, it's about, do we want to spend the time, effort, and energy right now to continue the process? As you said, Lunenburg's out. Has anybody officially stated they're in? Okay. I know Amelia and Cumberland, there's a couple other ones are moving in that, Dinwiddie are moving in that direction, but.
The tax you're talking about, are there any projections as to how much we would lose as far as, when taxes are high on cigarettes and alcohol, a lot of times people go elsewhere to buy them?
Well, that's the good thing, I think, here. If we do it as a region, you know, if Lunenburg's the only one that doesn't have a tax, will people drive to Lunenburg to save 40 cents a pack?
I will say in Lunenburg, the reason the county didn't want to pursue it is they felt like the majority of their convenience stores were in the 2 towns.
Which already have a tax.
Well, no, they don't.
Don't.
But they figured if they did a tax, the county wouldn't put one on top of it anyway.
Okay.
So they were leaving it open to, of course.
For the towns.
Victoria, which they've been able, they've been able to do that all along.
Yeah.
Does anybody know where they came up with the 20 packs?
The
That's not
average,
even-
that,
That's not even a month, that's not even a month's worth of smoking, that's 10 days.
well, but again, but that makes,
Where in the world-
that makes up for the people that don't smoke. So
So they're using it per capita?
it's a per capita range.
Okay.
And they've looked at, I think, other places that collect this type of tax and looked at the population levels. And obviously in demographics, there are some communities that people smoke more than others. I mean, that's the hard estimate, hard guess to make, but that's about as close as anybody, I think, has gotten.
You know the last time, when the last time you bought a pack of cigarettes? Anybody bought a pack of cigarettes lately?
30
Recently?
years.
Man, a pack of cigarettes costs you about $7.
No, it's on cigarettes only,
Just
Bobby.
cigarettes. I know I bought them every occasionally for my brother, but last time I went to the store, I don't smoke. I smoked for 35 years though. I think I paid almost over $7 for a pack of cigarettes. Now you're talking about adding another
20 cents, 40 cents, 40 cents.
40 cents.
Some smokers just can't quit.
I'm telling you, that's Cigarettes expensive. I had enough of that when I was growing up. What about Dr. Pryor?
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
Know all about it.
But they are very, very expensive. And and hopefully that would encourage people to stop to stop smoking. And I mean, I've done it, but I mean, some people just can't, it's tough. But cigarettes are expensive.
I guess the question is, do we wanna continue with this, or are we gonna be like Lunenburg and say we're not? All right, so you're making a motion to look into it, Bobby? All right, Bobby's made a motion. Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
All right, Jim has got a second, so it's been motioned and seconded. Ms. Pride?
Yes.
Myself is a yes for that. Patty?
Yes.
Beverly?
Yes.
Jim? Bobby? Jerry?
Yes.
And Lou?
Table it.
Yes.
All right. Marketing assistant, you again, Doug.
When we went through the process of combining the positions of Economic Development Director and Tourism Director, we talked about that time trying to provide some additional backstop for Chelsea, who's now currently in the position. Previously, when we had, the positions split, you had somebody solely there 100% of the time able to focus on tourism. I think at one point when it was combined, according to Maggie Van Epps, I think Maggie started off as the kind of marketing assistant. Sarah, is that right? So we're really going back. This is a position that we had. We kind of got rid of it when we merged, had separated the two positions back out and had a director. But the Director of Economic Development, Tourism, and Grants requires a great deal of time meeting with stakeholders and partners inside and outside the office, as well as a lot of administrative work for the IDA. The marketing assistant position will help in assistance with managing the day-to-day operations in the visitor center and staff when the director is out of the office, assistance with coordinating marketing campaigns in collaboration with local business owners, assistance with the development and coordination of tourism-related programming to promote the county as a tourism destination, administrative assistance with preparing grants, assistance with scheduling meetings and planning events, and assistance with maintaining relationships with vendors and products such as signage, printing, brochures, and customer service via email, telephone communication, and also record management and retention. We had bumped some additional part-time money in the budget to be able to cover this last year, and finally gotten around to getting the revised job description and are asking to be able to move forward and fill that position at this time.
So moved.
All right, Ms. Patty has made a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
There's been a motion properly made and seconded. Ms. Pride?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Patty?
Yes.
Beverly?
Yes.
Jim? Bobby? Jerry?
Yes.
And Lou?
Yes.
Next item is on page 127 is our Vati grant match. And I know Melody's left, but want to thank Todd and Melody for their assistance. And today was the deadline for the Vati grant. And the governor, with the ARPA funds the state has received, I think they're talking like $700 million is getting pumped towards broadband. If there ever was a time to fix the technology gap of our citizens and their inability to access the internet, now is the time. And right now, the one person who has been there working with us has been Jim McGarrett at Connects Telecom, a local provider. I think, Jim, are you on the line as well? Yeah, can you hear me? Yes, sir. Thank you for being here. I came in here a few months ago. Connects had won a contract through RDOF, an RDOF auction to provide broadband to rural census blocks that don't currently have at least 25 Mbps download speeds. And, that project at the time, he was able to get almost $10 million in FCC grants. He came to us, the board supported, and the IDA has applied for a loan through the Tobacco Commission to be able to get some funds up front to get this project kick-started. And now the third leg of this stool is to apply for some of this money that's flowing into the state for the Vati grants. And that's, so Vati is the Virginia Telecommunication Initiative. And we've applied today for $15 million for a regional project that includes Prince Edward, portions of Lunenburg, and Cumberland. So the minimum match requirement for the Vati grant is 20%, and then at least 10% is required from a private source such as Connects. Connects currently has committed over $6 million to the overall project. We've also got this pending $4 million loan from the Tobacco Commission. With what we're talking about, and I'll let Jim speak in a minute, but he is talking about the ability to have fiber in front of all these homes in Prince Edward and the ones in Lunenburg and Cumberland that are part of this project really within 4 years. And, you know, if you had asked me a year ago when I started the job, what the number one thing I've been hearing from constituents is lack of broadband, particularly for our school kids that were trying to access online learning materials. And, you know, I thought it was going to take 10 plus years for us to be able to come up with some ideas. And I also thought it was going to be a lot more than the 2.153 million that we're talking about tonight. But again, the county has to come up with a match. I believe Cumberland last night, they did not provide the total amount of the match, and we're going to have to see how that impacts the Vati grant. But what we're proposing to use is some of our ARPA funding to be able to do that match. I think, again, we didn't know this opportunity would land in our lap. We didn't know the cash from the ARPA funding would land in our lap. And so it presents a unique opportunity. You know, I was envisioning that over like a 6 or 8 year period, the county would have to budget money that we would match with Vati money and try to get it accomplished. This way, we're basically trying to use these federal funds. And one of the things that we've also got to do is to make sure that any type of procurement requirement can be addressed. And one of the ways that we may approach this is ask the board really to commit this funding for the match through the IDA. And the IDA is already contracted with Connects as far as their loan agreement, and that may be the proper avenue. Of course, they're exempt from procurement. But the reality is, because Jim's already got the $10 million in FCC funding, there's nobody else that's going to be able to put a project together in this kind of timeline for the $15 million Vati grant. With that, Jim, would you like to add anything to what I've said?
Sure, and I think everything's been moving so rapidly that you haven't been able to keep up with quite all of it. First of all, let me say that the $4 million through the IDA, this program is a federal program put on by the FCC, and the way they put it on, they said that they would pay $10 million is what 90 back up, everything a little bit. They put census blocks on there that did not have broadband. And they based upon the knowledge of fiber and population, what 60% would have to be to do that census block. And they made that the 100% mark, and that's where the auction started off. So you knew if you started an auction at 100%, that you won't get enough money to do 60% of the bill, electronics and everything. River Street, Tacoma, come down in North Carolina, ended up with 2 blocks on one in Lunenburg County, so they went down to 10%, meaning that when they won those, it would only take 6% of the bill cost. So they finally realized what they did, and they defaulted on those 2, so now we added those to Lunenburg's prior release. In fact, they defaulted on Halifax County, Brunswick County, and Mecklenburg County. Metcom just or 8 years now. By the end of the year, we will have built about 150 miles of fiber. You look at that compared to this project, it seems very small, but every dime of it's been paid for as I built it. There are no loans or anything against it. So anyway, we wanted this money and all, and then I went to the county, and said, hey, the FCC does not have this money in hand. They are getting this over a 10-year period, so they're gonna make payments to us over a 10-year period. But they require this to be built in 6 years. So years 7, 8, 9, and 10, I get $1 million each year of that, but the project has to be finished before then. So I got with Joe and went to the IDA, and I said, I want to borrow $4 million, and then I'll pay it back at the end of the project with this money that's all, guaranteed to me from the FCC, once I finish the project. So that's not really a borrow, outright. I just consider it in advance. I'm sure we'll have to pay interest on it. We don't know what the interest rate's gonna be yet, but all in all, I have beat these numbers. I started on this back in April of last year. And we bid on it, the bidding started in November of last year. And, awards were made in December. We began to do packet after packet of submission requirements in January and up through July. I think I met every requirement, except for the deposit. It has to be $1 million deposit. That's part of that IDA. But what we're looking at doing, we're already going to build a certain amount of fiber in Lunenburg and Cumberland in the last year. So we're just continuing on those builds. But we're putting in 10 gig equipment. Now, you can talk about 10 megs or 500 megs or 1 gig. The equipment we're putting in, we're putting it in NBC shelters. They can push 400 gigs in and out of it. And we're putting in 10 gig equipment. Now, nobody's going to buy 10 gigs right now. I don't think they can afford it. It's just awfully expensive for me, even on the wholesaler. But what we're doing is we're bringing in the capability where people will be able to, call up and say, well, I want to upgrade to, or what happens basically now is that every 2 or 3 years, you can increase the bandwidth, the same price that people are getting, just to renew their contracts and to keep them on board. But we do a whole lot of 100 meg, 150 meg accounts. And most homes are 5 or 50, 75 meg. 50 meg for charge $49.95, and we guarantee it's 50 meg. Not like Cincinnati DSL where you go in and it's, I'm paying for 15 and I'm getting 2, and it's all right. Now we test it now, I'm down to a half a meg. What we sell is what you get, and that's the way it is in the larger cities throughout the country as well. We've just been, bringing to the country a little bit sooner than most people. But the whole project cost was $7 million. In addition to my $10 million, the FCC is giving me or granting me. I'm putting in $10 million from Connect. We're having outside contractors come in to build the fiber, and we're having outside contractors come in to do the installation to the houses. My personnel will do the inside install. But we've had 8 people and probably $1 million worth of shovels and machinery or more. And we're going to be out there kind of filling in the blind spots and making sure that everything gets done. As much priority as we can. One of the issues that we have is that the FCC, they're not going to require us to account for every sort of fiber and a splice closure or anything like we have to do on every other grant. The new equipment that we're putting in has to be able to support application of that equipment, speed tests have to be done every quarter on at least 50 of our devices. So the FCC will request reports, and it may be at Doug's house, maybe at Miss Ty's house, you know, and we'll come in at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning and run the speed test, and we have to present that to the FCC. They don't want to go through all the paperwork that they have been going through. They want to see what the actual results are from the people's house, so they can't be falsified. And eliminate the paperwork. We have to have 30% of the project done at the end of year 2. 40% at the end of year 3, so on up to 6 years, we're 100%. You know, I've been telling Doug that I think I can do all this in 4 years, but it's close. You know, maybe 4.5 years. We just had Cumberland and Lunenburg. I was serious with their contributions, and that had us running out of money at year 4, trying to get some of the rest of them done. You know, I mean, I don't know what the status is, but I'm really favorable on y'all doing this money, as far as trying to make it a priority. But one of my priorities as well, my plan is like what one of the providers is doing, connecting with the America Fund 2 money, the one that crosses on Bloomberg and the rest of the county. They started on one side of the state and they're building across. My plan is to put a contractor in each county, multiple crews in each county. We're going to be spending over $7 million a year going into this. And we have to look at where's the most populated area, because we have to, you know, like I said, that by end of year 2, we have to have 30% of the houses passed, and we have so much time that if those people call us and say, we want to get hooked up, and they're in that area, we have to hook them up within so many hours, and they can call FCC and report it if we don't. So there are, you know, some little issues that we have to deal with. Anybody have any questions?
Any questions from the board? I guess to call the question then, is there a motion to go this route or not?
Well, I think we need it out in rural areas, our,
Well, let me tell you one more thing too, I'm sorry. One of the requirements of Vati is that we get universal coverage across the county. So like in Cumberland County, our client has the northern part of the county, and then I've got the southern part, and just over on the other side of the courthouse back. But there are little pockets that weren't included in this office, and there are pockets all over the place where CenturyLink has DSL, and in Cumberland where Verizon has DSL. We all know, and in fact, I did a survey to the part of Buckingham County, and went inside the people's houses, or gave them postcards, and had them actually do the speed test, and manager out in North Carolina signed an affidavit saying that all down that road they had 50 and 60 megs, and then I proved that they had 8 megs, and then at night it turned into 4 or not. So what the state is requiring us to do within 200 or 300 feet, you can get 100 meg. But they reported they're getting 100 meg much further than that. And we've already replaced some of it. We got some fiber in place, and we've already replaced some of it. But we've included all that in our areas as well. When this started, the FCC awarded us, actually my computer, I have it up here. It was for Prince Edward County, 3,271 houses. When we went back and looked at what areas that we think centrally is cheating people, it is now up to 6,139 houses. Now, when this thing goes in, it may not be approved for 6,139 houses, because when this thing goes out for public notice, CenturyLink is gonna jump all over this application, do everything they can to tear up all of those ones that we're trying to overbuild on them. And then, but we've mailed out over 3,000 postcards over the last month, and asked people in a lot of these areas to do speed tests and report it to us on our website. So we've ended up with 400 or 500 people that reported back. And we're gonna go door to door, whatever it takes to take, but there will be a signed affidavit by a CenturyLink employee. But I know that y'all hear about people just tired, sick and tired of their DSL. We're gonna try to fix those as well, because those were not allowed to apply for those areas. Because supposedly they had broadband, that CenturyLink has been reporting for years to the FCC. So they were offering, if Vati wants us to make those on in the fight to get fiber. Yeah, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have left that out.
All right. All right, up to the board. Go ahead, Bobby.
We've been trying to make this thing work for years with their, for the $12 broadband, that was so faithful money was thrown into that. And I'm ready to see a little contractor who I believe in and, trust, take this realm of this and move forward with it. And, I know CenturyLink got, I'm one of their customers, and, potential best of them. They're not too long yet, so, yeah, I'm all for backing this, no doubt.
All right, is that a motion, Bobby?
And I got so aggravated, because, well, I won't get started.
That was a total flop.
Well, I knew they asked me, anyway, that was before, and I said, no, you guys, by then, I'd been doing wireless for 5 years, Charlotte County, Prince Edward County, Nottaway, some in Lunenburg. I was shooting beams from all the schools in 5 counties, Prince Edward, Lunenburg, Charlotte, and everything. And they were saying, well, we can do this, with 2 towers in the county. I said, y'all are talking about magnets at the time. If you could build 2 towers, the AT&T would be doing it. And they hired a company, Airspan, out of Israel. They spent $15 million on the phone. And some of my friends were actually on the board evaluating, because, remember with wireless.
Hey, Jim, I hate to cut, Jim, I hate to cut you short, but I think Bobby has made a motion. Is that correct, Bobby?
Yeah, well, I do have a motion, but I'm 41% of it out.
Okay.
That's second.
All right, Bobby's got the motion and Jerry's got a second on it. Ms. Pride?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Patty?
Yes.
Beverly?
Yes.
Jim? Bobby? Jerry?
Yeah.
And Lou?
Yes.
All right, and that motion was for us to use the CARES Act, or not CARES, well, CARES Act somewhat too, for the 2,153,000, correct, Doug?
It'd be to commit up to 2,153,500 of its coronavirus local physical recovery funds
For every fund.
from the America Rescue Plan Act as a match for the Vati Grant match for the provision of broadband service to Prince Edward County.
Just so we know exactly where our motion is. All right.
Yeah.
Thank,
What we've done is to apply for a loan, Bobby, for $4 million to, as Jim was talking about, years 6 through 10, he'll get $1 million a year from the FCC. This kind of floats the loan so he can kind of upfront all the work and get the work completed in a shorter time frame.
Okay, yeah, I knew it was something, I kind of
All right, Sarah.
Voted on it.
Be good.
Mr. Chairman, annually, the Board of Supervisors authorizes county animal control to post the county's land as no hunting at the beginning of the hunting season. So we are here again this year just asking for your authorization to have that done.
I think on page 131, you have an explanation of this. Are there any questions? If not, is there a motion to continue?
So moved.
All right, Jerry's got it. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been properly made in second. Ms. Pride?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Beverly?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Bobby? Lou?
Yes.
Jerry?
Yes.
So move.
You didn't ask me.
Oh, Miss Patty, I'm sorry about that. I
Yes.
skipped over you, Patty.
Kept on rolling.
What's wrong with me, Patty?
Tired.
That's right. All right, it has been properly made, seconded, and passed unanimously now. All right, Trey, you up for the emergency report?
Good evening, Board.
Good evening.
I passed out before the meeting y'all's handout for the 25th update of COVID. Y'all can see the numbers there. Y'all know the numbers have gone up and they can continue to rise, unfortunately. The UVA model that the state has been using is predicting that the spike will be somewhere around the week of October 17th for this area. We're hopeful that it will be the spike, if not before. Your vaccination numbers are down there, been updated accordingly. We have ticked up a little bit since last meeting. Our numbers that we did with Longwood students that we aren't accounting for in the VDH data, we're estimating we're at 58% now in total population vaccinated. Some previous events and upcoming events, September 10th, VDH conducted free COVID testing at Peffia Gym in the parking lot, drive-through style. 44 tests were administered. They had a pretty good turnout for that, for the 4-hour window they were there. They're gonna come back and start doing that every week on Wednesday in the parking lot, hopefully be drive-through unless weather isn't permitting and they have to move it to the, inside or whatever. But from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. for the next 5 Wednesdays at Peffia. We're gonna advertise that on Facebook. We're gonna advertise it on the signboards like it is now. Anybody that needs a test, needs to go.
When you gonna start that track?
It started last week, but they're gonna start this Wednesday for the next 5 Wednesdays. So it's the
That's like
PCR
10 to
test.
2?
I'm sorry,
Is that 10 a.m. to?
11 a.m. to 3 p.m. And it's the PCR test, so it's not rapid. It takes 2 to 3 days, depending on the state lab, to get that back, which you'll be notified. Yeah, it's PCR, so. Also, VDH is gonna start their vaccination clinics back at Peffia inside the gym. The first one scheduled is September 24th. All 3 vaccines will be available for your first and second shots. There hasn't been a ruling from the FDA or CDC on booster shots yet, so right now it's just first and second for any one of the 3 shots that are available. That's walk-in style also, no appointment necessary. You can get an appointment if you need to, so if anybody asks, we'll advertise those on the signboards and Facebook and all that also. Your EMS call numbers are on the page number 3. For public information, we continue to update and publish vaccination information on the website, Facebook, and message boards. The second countywide mailer, similar to the first one that went out back in the spring, late winter, early spring, is going to be in the process of being redone, waiting some pending information from the CDC and FDA so we can know exactly what direction to drive that for the information. And emergency management continues to support VDH and clinics at the Peffia Gym with the building operations and public information, and we continue to maintain situational awareness on COVID and the Delta variant.
I noticed in tonight's paper that of the 5 surrounding counties, including Prince Edward, we had the worst vaccination rate of any.
Yeah, unfortunately,
because
that's,
of Longwood or what?
it's because of the college numbers. A lot of those students are counted here for our population, but unfortunately, they put their home address down, so the numbers goes out. And there's some other zip code issues and some stuff about some of the outlier zip codes getting counted in different areas and stuff.
I think, Trey, what, if we factor those students back into the numbers, we're at about 55+%, Sarah? with
Yeah,
our
50,
vaccination rate.
55, 58%.
Yeah.
And then, we didn't even dig into some of the outlying zip codes to try to get those couple here and there. So we may be, a little higher than that, obviously. So we're a little better than what's advertised. So, all right, any questions?
Thank you, Trey.
Trey,
Trey, one quick question.
one little thing, change the subject a little bit. Since that portable sign has been put up down on 460 at 307, has there been any accidents since then? That
To
you
my
recall?
knowledge, I don't believe, Sheriff. How long, I don't know how long it's been up.
Almost a month now, isn't it?
A couple of, there's a couple of, it's been a month there. Yeah.
Better than what it was?
We had 2 of these, if not 3 last week.
Really?
Yeah, I don't think anything severe, no major injuries or anything, so.
Thank you.
Mr. Gillum, I did happen to speak, and I don't think Scott addressed it earlier. I spoke with him earlier today and asked specifically about the pavement markings and the signage and all the special, and he said wherever they are, they were running behind, but he's certain they should be here soon.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Trey. Ms. Terry.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good to see all you folks. I just realized I left my mask over there.
All right. Roll on.
Anyway, the months seem to fly by. Working a lot on IDA business. We're still plugging along on several projects there. Don't have any real, good news is no lawsuit that I know about as of this afternoon. And anyway, I'm glad to take any questions, any concerns, any.
I started, we sitting out something about fencing, and was it,
I think that Doug sent that out.
It was a summary of looking at our adjacent counties, fence in or fence out, and also had a lot of information pulled by 4-H to look at around the state. It's a split. About half are fence in, about half are fence out, and, staff is certainly willing to take any direction from the board, but that's kind of where we currently
When did we change? Do you know when that was, Terry? Does anybody know? That's,
My recollection is the impetus for the fence in was a cow situation out somewhere on western end of the county, because I think it was Supervisor 4.
Supervisor who?
In his term before he became chair, that
Oh,
he was
Bucket.
the one that requested.
Bucket.
10 or 12 years ago.
To fence in? To fence in?
we went to fence in. We were always fence out
There was
until
a cow situation somewhere out in the Pamplin area. And
approximately 12 years ago, Jerry, is what I was getting at. We had always, is that right?
I'm gonna say longer ago than that, but
I thought it was 2005.
we can track it easily. I mean,
All right, so that's 16 years.
Karen can certainly find out when it went to public hearing for the first time.
It was before I started in the second. So
Okay.
I only have back to the 6.
Yeah, we had always
I think it was
been-
like 2005, something I read along the way when we were initially talking about it a couple of years ago.
I could be right.
I don't know.
Well, we were just talking about it, but go ahead, Bob, if you have any comment on that. Jerry was,
A neighbor of my brother's is Bison. You probably might know him, David Tom Morris.
yes, That's correct.
For quite a while. They just had to develop that bull, didn't want to kill it. So they finally had to put it in. And why I'm getting to this is, if my neighbor has bison, and I don't have a animal on my farm, does that mean I put a fence to keep his bison off my farm?
The question there, go ahead, Doug. I think
No, I
Doug
was
was
gonna
getting
say,
ready to say.
that would, if you were fence out, the answer is yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
Right, but right now, we're fenced in.
right.
Correct.
So I'd be protected by being fenced in. And,
Cool.
you know, I pet cattle too, they get out, they come down, I don't deny that. I do the best I can to keep them in, and I'm a farmer, I know a lot of other farmers are exactly on the other side of the fence.
I got you, Bobby. Go ahead.
That's right.
Things happen you can't control. But I don't see why, and the reason I brought the bison issue is, you know, that could be a reality. If, we're a fenced out county, and I choose to have 50 buffalo run around my farm, and they can get out, it's like, so what? It's not my fault. So that's where I'm going with that. I'll shut up.
Yeah, well,
That's
that's
a good
the point, I agree with you, Bob, there. I think that the reason why that was sent out was that there was some questions with the fence in, the fence out. There's a state code, and Terry can by all means correct me on this. There's a state code that requires you to be responsible. I won't say that you have to fence them in, but you still have to be responsible whether you have fences or not. And the fence in and fence. Say again? That's right. No, you're exactly right. But no, what I was saying is it doesn't, whether you're fence in or fence out does not take away, according to the state law, does not take away your responsibility for any damages or anything else. You're required, is that correct, Terry?
I don't have the site with me, but that's basically what
I'm-
I recall.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
That's
Yes,
what
sir.
that is. The whole issue that I think some people don't understand about the fence in or fence out was that they thought that it absolved them of any legality or whatever else, and it doesn't. It also does not absolve you of having to pay for half of the fencing of your neighbor if you decide not to have them with fence in or fence out. So if you wanted to require your neighbor to pay for half of your fence, you could require that whether you're fence in or fence out. The only way that you can change that is if your neighbor decides to what they call allow their land to lie open. And the only way that they can allow their land to lie open is if they never plan to use it for anything that requires a fence. So there's a peapot load of legality issues there and whatever else. I'm not at this point advocating fence in or fence out either one. I agree 100% with you, Bobby, that it's as landowners or cattle people or farmers or whatever else, and we should certainly try to keep our animals in. I think that was just some.
If you want to own the animal, you need to maintain it on your property. And, I think that.
Yeah, and I think that's something that's coming up actually tonight in Cumberland County, is if they are expanding theirs to include some other animals. Fowl, I think, is what they're really working on. Terry, you might know about it, and you might not.
I wasn't aware.
But that was one of the things that I read this week and talked to somebody else, that they're revisiting their animal issue to include fowl because it was not in their ordinance where ours is. Ours includes all animals except for companion animals, if I'm not mistaken, is how it reads. But,
You know, and I think Commonwealth had their hands full. Someone had Buffalo there for a while too, the rat. You know, it's just something that you choose to own something. You need to retain it on your own property. And it's up to you if it's for pet, if it's for profit or whatever. But you
But yeah, Jerry, that was
I
info,
agree with that.
that was informational purposes more than that true, Doug. I mean, you sent out.
Absolutely, that was,
FYI.
we had talked about it previously, and it took me a while to be able to glean the information. And I do want to state, it looks like the ordinance was, the major renovation of it was December 8 of 2015, so 6 years ago was when it was changed.
That's right.
6 years ago.
You had a 5 right.
So it's, that's good. It's not too bad. Fence in, Prince Edward.
You know, Doug sent around a circular to all of us about that, and I think if we've got experts or somebody that knows something more about it than the rest of us, we ought to depend on them. And in this case, we've got David and we've got Bobby, and whatever the two of them come up with is fine with me. I did suggest an arbiter or the admiral if they couldn't agree.
I appreciate that, Jim.
Other than that, really, I mean, whatever Bobby and David agree on, since they're the ones that got the animal, I'll go along with it.
Sometimes you have neighbors that don't work with you. I'm lucky, our neighbors, they'll get the guys in for me at times.
That's,
And I know that makes it a scary situation. We do have somebody that's, not cooperative.
yeah, that's part of it.
There ought to be, if I have guys, they should be on my property with all my, abilities to keep there.
Yeah, I agree with that.
The other thing's interpretation of the fence. Could be a single strand electric fence. It can be a board fence. It can be a 6-foot-high woven fence with barbed wire on top. You know, there's a lot of little things could be read into this thing.
I understand exactly what you're saying, and,
Yep.
it's amazing what some people can do with one strand of, electric fence.
Yep.
I know this guy very well down on 307, and it scares me every time I go by it. He's got one strand of barbed wire electric fence. This guy has never been in the highway on 307, which, that's a bad highway to have guys in.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, I know she get as far as who we define what type of fence you should have. Not only that, if your guy is sitting your property with whatever you're doing, fine, but when it starts being a problem, that's when, something else needs to be done.
Yeah, I think that once again goes back to the state code. There's already a state code requirement of what that is too. It's, has to be at least 42. It doesn't tell you specific, it says of material, durable material, 42 inches in height. Tells you whether it's from a high spot or a low spot or whatever else. There's a code, there's so many things to deal with that it's, but yes, it is thank goodness the county doesn't have to do that. I agree with you, Bobby. There is a state code that covers that. Any more questions for Terry?
That's it.
All right.
Thank you, ma'am.
County Administrator Doug.
Few items to report on. Again, the county has received its first tranche or first half of its American Rescue Plan funding. That money has been set aside in a separate CD, separate from Rustic County funding. Congratulations to Planning Director Robert Love for passing his ENS and Stormwater Inspector Certification exam and his Program Administrator exam. Those are not easy tests. Employee evaluations, cover memo and evaluation forms been sent out to department heads and constitutional officers. Some already do annual evaluations, others do not. We're going to make sure everybody is on basically the same cycle and have those completed. Some employees will be evaluated for the first time since they've been with the county this year. Our Sandy River Reservoir permit was submitted last year, that's going to be last week on time, and we'll be continuing to have some discussions with some of our neighbors, including the town of Burkeville in the coming weeks. I want to congratulate our IT AV tech in there. Cheryl Stipson has been promoted to the position of Finance Director. Cheryl, if you'll come out and stick your head out for a second.
There she is.
Congratulations, Cheryl. To Cheryl, and she really has stepped up in the past year, and we're excited to take on this new responsibility. She's also been tasked, we're gonna send her to school and have some goals for her to accomplish, but I also want to thank our folks that served on our interview committee and helped us with that process as well, because that really made it easy. Thank you, Patty and Beverly, for that. But congratulations, Cheryl, and I know you'll be up to the task.
Congratulations.
Coronavirus we've covered. Again, solar, Commonwealth Energy Partners will be hosting a community meeting on Monday, September 20th from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. at the Hampton-Sydney Volunteer Fire Department on a proposed 304-acre, that's 208 acres of panels. So this is small potatoes, Lou, compared to some of what we've been talking about, but still a pretty large solar project. The project is located off Rice Creek Road in the Lee District, and I know Supervisor Townsend will be there at that meeting. Landfill RFP, the county received 4 responses, and we'll be holding interviews to select an engineer for our landfill moving forward. The next few years will be important because we'll be closing out our current cell and opening the next cell during that time period, so we want to make sure we're good to go from an engineering standpoint. Was mentioned earlier, we have a joint school board meeting on September 29th. The purpose of that meeting will be to look at options and cost estimates for renovation and replacement of the elementary school, and hopefully ultimately later to get consensus from the board and school board on a path forward. And I believe that meeting will be held at 6:30 p.m. And I think now they've moved it maybe to room 151. Originally, we were talking library, but I'll make sure I get that information out. Last thing, capital improvement plan. The Planning Commission will hold a public hearing on the draft plan at their meeting next Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Here. And folks at home, you can participate by phone and Zoom as well, but we anticipate having some folks turn out for that public hearing. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman, unless there are any questions.
Any questions for Doug? I guess the committee reports and things we've already pretty well taken care of, except for, go ahead.
I was going to say, we've got a couple of things I need some direction on. The first one is consideration of the additional 1% sales tax. During the FY 21-22 budget discussion, Supervisor Jones requested that staff look at alternative revenue options for the county, including the potential to have Prince Edward County added to the list of qualified counties that are allowed to collect up to 1% in additional sales tax revenue for the construction or renovation of schools within the locality. Currently, the list of qualifying localities listed includes Charlotte, Gloucester, Halifax, Henry, Mecklenburg, Northampton, Patrick, Pittsylvania, and the city of Danville. And if the state code is amended to include Prince Edward, the Board of Supervisors would have to request a referendum be held to ask the question if the county should be authorized to levy an additional local general sales, retail sales tax at a rate not to exceed 1%, provided the revenues from the sales tax shall be used solely for capital projects for the construction or renovation of schools in the county, including bond and loan financing costs related to such construction or renovation. The tax will only be allowed to be leveled for a period of 20 to 30 years until the debt is paid off of the school construction. Our Delegate Edmonds carried a similar bill, 1631, HB 1631 in 2020 for Charlotte. And the referendum passed in Charlotte in November 2020, 52.23% to 47.77%. We've estimated that 1% would generate $3 to $3.5 million a year in annual revenue based on collections of the past 5 years. And that's based on the county share of the local contribution of collections and our proportionate split of the piece with the town of Farmville. So we've been able to work with Davenport to pull some estimates together. Again, asking Delegate Edmonds only is requesting him to get the General Assembly to consider it. If they do include us, the board still has to vote to have a public hearing. But if we don't ask, we'll never be in that loop and be able to go down that path. But you can take $3.5 million and divide by $185,000. That tells you how many pennies it would take to cover. You're talking over 15 to 20 cents of real estate tax to cover the same amount of debt potentially covered by a sales tax addition. So I know I would say We don't have to make a decision tonight, but we'd have to make a decision this month or next month in order to make sure that we're giving Delegate Evans enough time to get his bill ready to go for the next session.
Do we need to vote on having a public hearing on it now?
Not at this time. All you need to do is ask me to approach Delegate Evans.
So moved.
Second. Ms. Pride?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Patty?
Yes.
Beverly?
Yes.
Jim? Bobby? Jerry?
Yes.
And Lou?
Yes.
All right, so moved.
I have my direction.
That's correct.
The next item out of the Finance Committee is that this regards the Finance Department. And basically, we've completed interviews for the candidates for Finance Director. We selected Cheryl. As part of that process, again, we interviewed several internal candidates, and we selected Cheryl for the Finance Director position. As part of the organization of the department, we're proposing to merge the human resources CSA functions, including HR, CSA, payroll, risk management, landfill billing, the meeting IT, and the insurance benefits section with the finance director, and to create a position of finance manager and appoint accounts payable clerk Crystal Baker to that position. The position would be established at a grade 17. The expectation is that Crystal will have the opportunity to grow into the position and seek outside educational opportunities with the understanding the position could be upgraded down the road. Once these changes are made, we would immediately work to backfill the accounts payable position that Crystal had with added support responsibilities for HR. The Human Resource Office Associate position that Cheryl had previously filled would not be backfilled, but we anticipate some duties to be taken over by the new accounts payable position and the front office receptionist. But, and Patty, Beverly, I don't know if y'all have anything else to add, but I think the way we've proposed it, it really, I think will make the organization stronger, allow both these ladies to continue to grow with the county and be able to cover both those areas of responsibility.
Any response from yours? All right. Properties Committee met tonight.
Can we
Go
get a,
ahead.
we got a draft motion in there, Mr. Chairman, if the board's willing to consider it.
So moved.
All right, it's been a motion made and seconded. Ms. Pride?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Patty?
Yes.
Beverly?
Yes.
Jim? Bobby? Jerry?
Yes.
And Lou?
Yes.
All right,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
yes, sir. To the Properties Committee. I
So-
guess, go ahead.
No, I'm trying, I don't have my list in front of me. Sarah, do you have the list? Do we have anything that had to have action tonight?
Just kind of a heads up to you all while she's looking at, we talked about creating a residential use, refuse sticker for your vehicles, starting possibly next year. You would get 2 free to begin with. Any additional up to 10 would be $5 a piece. And then after 5 years, it would just be a flat $5 a piece for your stickers. The first ones are gonna be free. That's just something we talked about. Of course, it's totally up to the board as to how we go about that or whatever else. But that was with the refuse sticker.
We talked about the Rice Compactor Convenience Site and redoing that site and looked at a draft site plan. We talked about the front of the courthouse and looking to get that out to bid here in a few months. We talked about the Scope Building and its future, and we'll have a recommendation coming back to the board. We had an engineering evaluation of the building. It's in pretty poor shape, and, it may have outlived its usefulness, but we'll go make a recommendation back to the board here in the near future. Sarah, anything else major that?
The removal of the recycling bins.
Correct.
Correct. At Tractor Supply, currently the county has some recycling bins that serve the kind of Price Briary area of the county that are right adjacent to the town limits. We've got 3 recycling bins in that location. Unfortunately, every week we are dealing with bags of trash that have been stuffed into the recycling bins that force that material to be kicked over or kicked back from steps. Trash is left across the ground. We get calls from Tractor Supply. It looks like we're moving forward with trying to remove those and have to direct our citizens to use our existing facilities, probably the closest at Worsham, Tuggle area of the county, or even Rice, I guess.
Nice.
Still gonna use the bins, just put them in one of the stations.
Correct, use them as a rotator.
And we'll
They're-
probably-
They're actually in better shape than,
We need to get information out to the public, something like October 31 or so, we'll look at moving those bins.
Those in Tractor Supply parking lot are there, that's available to the public?
Right now, it's available to the public, but unfortunately, rather than recycling, they're giving us trash.
you know, we get
And they're
them full.
leaving the trash outside too.
And they're
in
leaving the
parking lot.
trash outside. That's the real problem.
All of a sudden, there's some large containers in the parking lot. I just noticed the last few days and whatnot, and, not for that, I don't know what they are. I don't know, Tractor Supply is using.
Tractor Supply has
or what.
their warehouses and stuff in them right now. Yep.
Anything
They are
else, Sarah? Was
Cargo
that it?
containers. Yeah, well, Bobby, I guess I should have prefaced that to say that was just what we talked about. It wasn't even a recommendation, it was just a discussion. And right, I understand where you're coming from. And like I say, this is just coming out of the committee of some of the things that, there were several recommendations that we were gonna talk to Terry about as looking into the state code and how our ordinance would read and/or whatever else. So this was just kind of an idea of some of the things that we talked about. It definitely is gonna be left up to the board as to vote on and discuss and whatever else. Appreciate your comment. All right, we have some information, I guess that's just information in 185 through 191.
Yes, sir.
Which is some letters from Powhatan and the new administrator of Nottaway County. Monthly reports is 193 through 206, you have that. But then we have an addendum to the packet, item number 26, appropriations, 207, is that correct, Doug?
Yes, sir.
All right.
You've got a request in your packet from Prince Edward County Public Schools requesting appropriation in the amount of $353,545.98 to the school operating budget. The funds are a combination of state and federal reimbursement grants. No county funding match is required. And the amendments in the various budget lines are included on that cover sheet. And I'll give you the other one. You can adopt both of them at the same time. The other one is the Virginia Office of EMS recently notified us about funding for the 4 for Life program. The funding is legislated by the Code of Virginia, Section 46.2, 694, which stipulates an additional $4 per year is charged and collected at the time of vehicle registration and set aside a special fund to be used only for EMS purposes. Staff has been working with Prince Edward Volunteer Rescue Squad to get the funding caught up. This appropriation before you is for the FY19 4 for Life funds. Once the 19 expenditures are reported, we'll apply for the FY20 funds. The appropriation is the amount of $17,998.24.
And that's,
That money gonna be divided among the,
no. Let me,
go
Doug,
to just
maybe,
Beavers? That's what I'm saying. Would, just Beavers? Okay.
Doug, you or Sarah, either one want to speak to that? And that's, 4 for Life is for emergency medical services only, correct?
That's correct. Historically, those funds have gone, specifically to Peters, the Prince Edward Volunteer.
Okay.
But the 17,998 is for year 19, is that correct? That can change, Jerry.
Yeah, yeah.
Somehow we got behind, and so we're catching up. Trey's working with Prince Edward Volunteer Rescue Squad and the Office of EMS to get the reports and to get the funds. So the funds are still there, the county allocation of funds are still there, and we're working with Deanna, you know, to get the funds expended and reports submitted so that she can continue to utilize these funds.
Trey, did you get it from Bloomberg? Did you guys get it? Okay.
Every county, Trey or whoever, correct me, or anyone as far as I'm concerned, it's on the vehicles, it's just a $4 per vehicle licensing, and it goes directly to emergency medical services, and it can't be used for anything else. There's also one for the fire department that's called,
ATL.
there you go, ATL. So it's, there's a difference there. But anyway, this will catch us up for 19, and then we will owe 20 and 21, just so the board knows.
I move that we approve, the board approve both, budget amendments for the school and the, Fourth of Life.
Second.
All right, there's been a motion made and properly seconded for that. Ms. Pride?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Patty?
Yes.
Beverly?
Yes.
Jim? Bobby? Bobby, you still with us? Yep. Jerry?
Yes.
And Lou?
Yes.
All right, any questions, comments from the board? From the public? Yes, ma'am. Go ahead, Lou.
One little thing, I heard a little something out of Richmond, they were talking about maybe doing away with your grocery sales tax. Did you all hear any of that? It'd be kind of interesting to understand what they're talking about.
That's proposed by Youngkin.
Right.
That's a few.
The guy that's running for governor, Youngkin, that's proposed by him.
Yeah.
Sarah?
The Virginia Association of Counties Annual Conference is coming up, so we need to get an idea of who plans to attend so that we can confirm your hotel reservations and also get you registered for the conference. I'm not gonna make you many promises that it's actually gonna happen, given the trajectory of COVID, but we'll at least be ready if you plan to attend, and we do have a draft agenda if you'd like to take a look at it, but I think that the conference registration deadline is coming up here fairly soon. We've got the hotel reservations made, but we need to get,
So we've got a few rooms at the Hilton, but right across the street at the Waterside Marriott is the rest of the rooms. So we've gotten everybody right in that general vicinity, so it'll work out pretty well, looks like.
Lou, you brought that up. There's another issue coming,
got me, right?
kind of down the pike or down the line or whatever else that everyone's need to look into and just see. There's some financial, legislation coming out where they're hoping, I say hoping to get something passed where if you have $600 in your bank account, that every transaction will be reported to the IRS. Something that you need to talk to your senators and everyone else about. I mean, it's some pretty serious overburden as far as I'm concerned, but the banking industry is really fighting it because they're gonna have to hire people to do this and whatever else, so look in.
Currently 10,000, right? Is that the limit? I think
It's currently 10,000 that they have to, but if you have 600, it will be everyone, so every debit card transaction, everything you do. So it's, just look into, keep up with that, read about it, whatever you can find out or whatever else. That's just some information for you. Anything else? If not, we're done. Motion to adjourn. Patty's got it. Is there, Ms. Pride, I will go this direction.
Yes.
You got a second? Myself, yes. Patty?
Yes.
Beverly?
Yes.
Jim? Bobby? Jerry? And Lou? So move.
Yes.
No.